So you can just call for Black at 3:30. So I guess you guys can begin on.
Okay, welcome to this meeting of the Safety and Health Committee. My name is John Terwilliger. I am the chairperson of it. Jeff Schelling is to my right, and Bill Roselle is to my left. Today is August 10th, and we're looking at about 5 minutes after 6. We have before us today as a committee a responsibility to provide a recommendation to council, establishing a designated outdoor refreshment area. As you've just heard, our vote is yes or no for disapproval or approval. So at that point, is there anything, Mr. Roselle, that you'd like to say?
No, I mean, I think from the comments we had in the work session, that based on the comments we had in the work session and what we were told last Monday, as well as Grant's clarification today, any changes or modifications to this would require either a recommendation from us to not approve the current application and to vote no once whatever the committee report says going forward.
Mr. Schelling?
I think it's pretty evident of what we need to do.
Are there any members of council who wish to voice?
I would suggest that you place it on the agenda because with our committee rules, you need a positive recommendation of 2, at least for it to go further onto the council's consideration. And if it sounds like, from what I heard, council intends to not approve this or disapprove it. So I guess the committee recommendation would it to be go forward for council consideration.
And on there, will be on there for 3rd reading.
Okay.
As an ordinance, so it would be,
Mhm.
it's already before council, so they.
Right.
You're saying
Right.
here,
Right.
make a
Mr.
recommendation.
Gerber?
Yeah, they can recommend denial, but you will have a chance to act on it on Monday.
Yes.
That was my question. So we have the ability to say, we're going to move this on to council with a recommendation to deny it.
Correct.
And then that way council would have the ability then next Monday to either approve it or disapprove it.
Correct.
So then we would be voting on moving it forward to city council for vote.
Well, yeah, but our committee comments would be that we are not recommending it.
Right. We are
To be passed.
asking council
But
to
to-
deny
The approval,
approving
the door
the resolution, the DORA resolution
would be the committee report.
would be the committee report.
So having also discussed yesterday with Mr. Lutz the opportunity for voice on that, for those who are in the audience, if having heard what we anticipate the steps being, is there anyone who has something that you would like to say?
I do.
We have one here. And
Go
then
first, then you.
Andrea, before you start, you need to have the microphone 2 inches from your mouth.
Anybody who wants to make comments, please hold the mic very close. We had comments from the public last meeting that you couldn't be heard, so you have to speak pretty close to that microphone.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Keller, and I'm the executive director with Troy Main Street. I just wanted to clarify what Tim was saying. We have around 67 businesses that we felt downtown would be affected by the DORA, that it could, either positively or negatively affect them. We only counted businesses on the first floor. And of those, we have 18 restaurants. 7 of the restaurants were for the DORA. 1 was actively against it. And then 2 didn't care either way. 7 we did not hear back from. And 1 felt the same way council did, that if the hours were shortened, they would feel comfortable with it. Retailers, we have 29, 13 were for it. 1 was against it, 1 didn't care either way, and 14 we did not ever hear back from. The services, like the salons and everything, we have a total of 15. 4 are for it, against it were 0, and 1 didn't care either way. We didn't hear back from 10. As far as attractions go, we had a total of 5, 1 for it, 1 against it, and 3 that we didn't hear back from. So I just wanted to make that clarification for everybody. And also, just so that you know that the business hours that people are open, one piece of feedback we've really gotten from the DORA is that it really increases the foot traffic and that people do tend to come back and shop in their downtown later when a store is open. And also that I think a lot of our businesses have started online stores, especially in the wake of all the COVID stuff. So I think that's something to consider too. Somebody might see something in a window and then go shop online. And I think that's just really, really relevant to the times that we're in right now. So that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. No.
The only people I see that this is going to benefit,
What's your name, please?
Sandra Bastian,
Thank you.
the only people that I can really see that this is going to benefit is the bars and restaurants. Is this what you want on the streets, is people drinking? I know that my neighbor, I have a property at 16 North Market. They're very disrespectful of other people's property. People come out of there, their clients are disrespectful, and they're going to travel downtown Troy area. I have a problem with that. I just, think that this is wrong. I'm not a business holder, but are these businesses that you're talking about helping promote the retail businesses? Are they really going to stay open after 5, 6 o'clock? I mean, you got to figure they're open from 8 to 10 in the morning until 5 or 6 at night. Are they really going to stay open for these people to come in? And then are they going to allow them to come in? I know that I wouldn't allow the patrons that come out of my neighbor's place to come in my business at night after they've been drinking. Another thing too is the Ohio Revised Code says that you're supposed to police your own business. I owned a carry-out state contracted liquor store, and I was responsible for policing my patrons. My neighbors don't police their patrons. They come out and they're intoxicated. They crawl in a car. What's the next thing? That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Mr. Connor, 1210 South Clay Street, Troy, Ohio.
Welcome back.
I haven't heard anybody mention coronavirus. To me, that is the biggest issue that America is facing right now. And you mix alcohol and coronas, it doesn't go together. The mask will come off. They'll be spitting in each other's face and carrying on, laughing and hugging. We see it on TV all the time. We're not getting a hold on coronavirus. And this idea here, at this time and point, should not be, because our biggest concern is coronavirus. Get that under control, then discuss something else.
Thank you. Okay. One more?
Hello, Dennis Polly. We had a member from Calvary Baptist Church over here. We had a petition. Boy, everybody's against this. But anyway, I would just like to say this about downtown Troy. It is the quaintest place I think we've ever seen. Well, I can just imagine a bunch of drunks controlling in here. I'm against it. So, don't ruin a good thing before you got it.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no other persons, yes, I guess I do see one.
Dean Williams. I'm a recently retired process engineer. I'm here in Troy, and I'm a stats guy. And when I look at a presentation that we saw tonight, there was one data point that it actually helped any business, and that was, as mentioned, the alcohol business. There was no stats. There were 40 towns, and there wasn't one stat on how much it increased the profits or the businesses in those towns. There was no stat on what the cost would be to police it.
to clean up after, as was mentioned. And so, you know, Troy to me is one of the greatest towns that I've ever been in. Lived here a long time, but I traveled a lot. And I've had people come from all over Ohio that I've talked to, and they come downtown Troy and they absolutely love it. When my grandkids, the kids come back into town, the first place we head is downtown. If this thing is established and there's that possibility, I don't go to football games and baseball games because I don't like beer spilled on me. I don't like the issues that it brings at those games. So I quit supporting. I would quit supporting Troy. And so, you know, I would ask, if I were you guys, I would ask what really good thing that it brings to downtown Troy. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no one, then as committee before us, we have the option to vote denial, but recommendation that this be brought forward to council at the next meeting. Mr. Rozell?
I agree to move forward. I agree we move forward, recommendation to council that we deny the current door application.
I would agree with Mr. Rozell on that.
And that makes it unanimous. Is there any other business to be brought forward before safety and health? Seeing none, our committee meeting is adjourned.
We are not supposed to, where do you want us to be?
All right, why don't you just come over here? I mean, you might want to stay there.
I need to move.
Mr. Rozell, Mr. Twist might want to come over here because I think Mr. Davis has a presentation that he wants to do.
Well, do you want them to just stay there while he does the presentation, or?
You guys want to stay down there while he does the presentation?
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Just stay there, guys.
Okay.
Mr.
Just stay where you're at, and I can move over here.
I guess I'll start us and then we'll do that. Are you okay if I start us here and then we have the presentation
We have presentation first.
and then we'll move over here?
We have
Are
presentation.
we all together?
Yes.
Well,
It is. We got a presentation first. Sit down.
Are ready to get started after this will come in? Okay. Are you ready, Mr. Davis? Oh.
Sorry.
It's a short break then. Good evening. This is a meeting of the Community and Economic Development Committee. I am Councilmember Lynn Sneed. Also on the committee are Councilmember Bill Rozell and Councilmember Bill Twist. We have two items tonight. One on providing a recommendation to council about ordinance 037-2020, which rezones a parcel between State Route 718 and McCaig Road from county zoning to a planned development. And then also an item providing a recommendation to council regarding an annexation petition that has been filed. I believe that Mr. Davis has a presentation on our first item, which is the rezoning. So we'll see that and then continue. Yes.
I'm sure you will all be tired of me by the time this is over. I did prepare a PowerPoint with some slides to kind of go through the Redwood apartment neighborhoods. Mr. Berman is here as well. He is in the back and would be happy to answer any questions. And I asked our city engineer, Jill Rhodes, to be here as well to help answer questions that may arise. So the purpose of today is to review the recommendation from the Planning Commission, which was a positive recommendation to approve the 138-unit senior apartment plan development and provide a recommendation to the full city council. The location, to show where the location is, to give the bearing, there's McCaig Road at the top to the north and bounded by 718 to the south. The surrounding zoning, I know some questions have come up about the zoning districts. So essentially everything in yellow is residential. That is the R4 zoning district. The green is planned development, which is what this site would hold if approved. And the brown, which is located to the northeast, is R7, and that's multifamily. Anything that has no color is outside the city limits of Troy. First, a bit about walking through the development, talking about uses and layouts. The uses, this is a residential use with multiple principal structures. It will be completed in one phase. There's 26 buildings there that will be there. There's 138 total single-story units. Those single-story units are designed a single-story with 2 bedrooms. Most of them are they're catered and marketed to the seniors of 55 and up. This does sit on 22.5 acres. There are 6 dwelling units per acre. Some of the amenities that are being provided would be 5.2 acres of landscape green space. There's a walking path around a retention pond. There's a covered shelter near the retention pond as well for enjoyment. Okay, roadways. There are 2 access points, access connection points. I moved the map to show up this north, so it's in the same format you just saw. McCaig Road is to the top. 718 is to the bottom near the retention pond. We have 2 points, one coming off of 718. It does not connect to McCaig Road without turning onto another side road. And from McCaig, the same concept. You can get into the development from McCaig, but you cannot cut across through 718 without taking one of the side roads. So there's 2 primary streets and then 3 connecting streets that run vertically to make the connection points. There will be no parking along the streets. They are requesting that all the parking has to be in the garages or the driveways or the other areas, and there are 8 of those other areas that are set for off-street parking. There are 58 of those parking spaces. I think they call them guest parking if you look at their site plans. Roadway improvements. McCaig Road will be improved with curb and gutter. It will be installed at the developer's expense. We did ask for widening of the road as well right there, at least the portion that is in the city limits, so it would be that half. That would also be at the developer's expense, and because we like to spend the developer's money, the sidewalk installation of 6 feet that we required are also at the developer's expense. As this is a private development, and that we'll talk about in a second, the expenses do fall to the developer with minimal cost to the city. The private development, the streets are private. They do not meet city standards for public streets in terms of width. This would be very similar to the adjacent Westlake Village, where their streets are private as well. They do not receive public snow clearing. Those type of items are not provided in this. The city does not provide trash to this development as well. It is all 100% private. Curbs and gutters will be included inside the development. You saw the road layout. They will provide curbs and gutters. We did have a review, of course, with the plans. Our city engineer and assistant fire chief. They've approved the street layouts and the turn radiuses and the maintenance of the private streets, and essentially everything else in development is the responsibility of the property owner. Traffic study. We did a traffic analysis, And what happened, Redwood provided something to us, and they reviewed it with the, I'll just go through it. It's on State Route 718 and McCabe Road. They broke down the two roads. So on 718, it was a two-lane undivided highway with 10-foot travel lanes. That road is unposted as 55 miles per hour. The AADT, which is the average annual daily traffic counts, in 2015, those were 3,244. And then in 2018, those counts were actually reduced by 9% to 2,965. It found McCabe Road in a very similar situation with 2 lanes undivided, 10-foot travel lanes. That has been posted as 45 miles per hour. That was done in 2016. It was kind of an area where it's halfway in the city and halfway out. And as you saw the previous map, it shows a lot of the area. You go in and out quite a bit. So it is posted as 45 miles per hour. The average annual daily traffic counts were 2,300 in 2015 and then 2,100 in 2018. So also a 9% reduction in traffic along that road. More information from the traffic study. Crash data from 2016 to 2018 yielded just 2 crashes in the area. Both of those crashes were on Arthur Road. One was in 2016 and one was in 2017. Both of those were vehicles striking roadside objects. Was really property damage only. No crashes were found on McCabe, and it was noted that both roads have straight horizontal flat vertical alignments. Essentially nothing there that impacts the sight of drivers throughout the area. Trips to be generated. This is probably the most important part of the traffic impact study. They used the ITE, which is the Institute of Transportation's trip generation rates for apartment homes. According to that, again, I think that was the 10th edition they used. 62 trips are expected during the AM hours, with 76 trips expected during the PM hours. That was using the ITE book. Essentially, what they also did is they took data from 4 fully built out and leased sites in Michigan in order to determine an appropriate number of trip generations, kind of for the youth apartments that they have with individuals living there and being more tailored towards the seniors. And what they found was the target demographic for those individuals was reduced to 27 to 29%. So that reduced the traffic counts even more. And just to put it in perspective, the city doesn't typically require a traffic impact study unless 100 or more peak hours trips are likely to generate a development. So in this case, we wouldn't even require a full traffic impact study for our requirements. I think this is an important slide just because it shows what will be coming. I think we talked a lot about, we heard traffic concerns, and I think it's pretty minimal when you look at the development as a whole. Utilities development will be served by city water and sewer lines. They're already run to the site. Maintenance of all the private utility and stormwater controls will be the responsibility of the property owner. And the plan seeks to control stormwater by using the retention pond that was located near 718. Drainage is usually a pretty big topic, especially when it comes to developments. So I want to throw these points out for the council. We did receive preliminary drainage plans for the developments, which of course it has the retention pond, which to satisfy those. And no development may divert water, stormwater to neighboring properties. It's just simply not allowed. So I think the concerns of them pushing watershed off to others is not going to occur. The plans do show the outlet drainage into I want to mess this name up, Zeigenfelder Ditch, which is located just south of 718. That's where the water will outlet to. With all developments, you must achieve a lower runoff rate than pre-development. So you take your pre-development rates and your post-development rates, and you cannot exceed what you had pre-development. So essentially, you can't make something worse than it already is. And the developer would also have to follow the critical stormwater designs as required by the subdivision regulations, which are part of the Troy codified ordinances. And then we will receive detailed calculations later on in the development process. Of course, this is phase 1 of 3 phases that they have to go through. And rent, the units are not for sale. They are leased only. Rent is in the range of $1,200 to $1,800 a month. It is marketed to the seniors of the community. And one of the items here I wanted to talk about was why we feel it's important for this type of home. This was taken from the Downtown Riverfront Study. These are 2015 estimates. It talks about that while we do have some multifamily options exist, the majority of our housing is detached single-family housing. You can see from that 70% of the homes that we offer living spaces are all single-family homes. 14% were multifamily, 5% were two-family, and 10% were triple or quads. This slide shows the projections that were coming over the next 5 years, and of course this was in 2000, and I think the numbers were from 2015. The study was released in 2017, and it shows the change in senior-led households. And as you can see, we'll have the demand for that. The numbers are shown right there. It says between 65 and 74 is 15.7% change, and 75 and up is a 14% change. So that will definitely have an impact on housing and what the city needs to provide. Here's a market analysis for residential. It says while housing diversity attracts and retains people at all life stages, Troy's changing demographics will drive the new housing demand. What's important, and the reason I threw this slide in there, is to the right, you'll see the empty nesters with their downsize options, and then the retiree senior housing. And above it, it talks about the shortage. That's because that's the shortage that we currently have that I think is trying to be filled with this development and some other developments we have in the community. And this slide here shows what we have been building. This is from the 2015 residential building construction, and it shows that in this area, 93% of everything built is single-family detached homes. The others are just 6%. So we have an aging population coming, and we haven't done a very good job of providing them opportunities to reside and to stay within our community. The comprehensive plan indicates the proposed areas to be developed as residential use, and that's according to future land use map, which I tried to put on the right side. It's hard to see, but the number 133 is essentially McCabe Road, and 718 is below that. Everything in yellow is residential. I just wanted to show you that we did plan this out to be a residential development. It talks about a mixture of residential units and densities under a planned development district is desired, and planned developments are encouraged as a flexible tool to meet the community's density needs while providing creative site plan development. And once again, it goes back to the slides I was showing, but it talks about the aging population that we have and opportunities that they're going to be looking for and trying to find. And I believe in Mr. Siebert's request, while he's not here, our law director provided everybody with information regarding what it needs to be focused on for a rezoning to occur. So the memo came from Mr. Kerber. It talked about the establishment of a plan development. This is step 1 of 3. You are in the approval of the general plan, which is what's before you, that you saw earlier, that requires action by both the planning commission, which made a positive recommendation to council. Step 2 will be the final development plan, which it requires just planning commission approval. And the third step is the record plan, which essentially shows that this can be developed in accordance with the final development plan. So that final step also takes action by planning commission and then again by city council. In addition to this, the memo addressed 3 other topics. One was general plan standards, and I did pass those out in front of you instead of review each and every one of those. I took it from the Planning Commission staff report that we provided to them. The general plan talks about standards, that it needs to approve that. We, of course, felt that it did a good job of addressing all those. There's also rezoning standards, 113907, that are also in the handout. that you guys have received. And lastly was the adoption and amendments for those. So these standards, I can go through those, or you have them there if you want to read through them. But it's questions that have to be answered and make sure that the general plan falls in line with the comprehensive plan and other items. And this is dictated by the zoning code. And I believe that's all I have for you. Be happy to entertain any questions the council may have.
Now, do we want to assemble our committee over here?
Right line.
I know. It's shining from her ass.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Davis, for that. I think that pretty well described what we have before us. So we are discussing providing a recommendation to council for this ordinance that council has already heard twice. It will be up for its third reading this coming Monday for a rezoning of this parcel from county zoning to city zoning. And it has gone through Planning Commission, and we do have a positive recommendation from Planning Commission. I just have a few questions, and then I'll ask if the other committee members do. Tim, you mentioned there was a section near this that is zoned R7. What's the density for R7, the number of units per acre that would be allowed, do you know?
Yeah, so R7 allows for 1 unit per 3,000 square feet.
Okay, so that's the multifamily, and is that around Stanfield? Am I thinking of that?
That is Stanfield.
That is the Stanfield
Correct.
coming into McKay. Okay, and then you also mentioned the planned widening of McKay. Would that include any kind of lane for turning into?
There was no turning lane. I might refer this to Jill, our city engineer. I just think of a lot of the drainage and traffic.
At this time, they would be building like we require every development because the other half is not in the city and hasn't been, well, it's not improved. That they would build half of the lane, half of the third lane. So similar to all the way down McKay. Unfortunately, we approached the county several years ago to talk about, hey, let's do improvement all the way down McKay. And the county kind of said, we'll let it annex and we'll let it be improved when it comes into the city. So they would build half of the lane, which would be half of the third lane. And then when the developer on the north side, when the property on the north side, if they were to develop, or if at a point in time the city gets the majority, almost all of McKay in, and it hasn't been widened, we kind of fill in the gaps as we go along.
And widen that to include a dedicated turn lane at that point?
To include a dedicated two-way left turn lane right in the middle. It's called a suicide lane, things like that. Yeah.
I'll just call it dedicated.
Okay.
And also the idea that has come up several times about this development having or being marketed to empty nesters, 55 plus seniors. Is there any kind of guarantee that there would be those residents living in this development, or how would they handle that marketing?
I'm probably going to ask if you don't mind Mr. Kerber to come up. He's the developer for the property. He's probably better off to answer that question myself.
If you wouldn't mind just stating your name and address, please, for the record.
Good evening. My name's Gregory Thurman, Acquisition Manager and Project Manager for Redwood USA. We are not proposing a 55 and over seniors only development here. Our 29 years and 12,000 units have proved that 50% of our residents are typically 55 and over. The other half of our market is young professionals and professionals that work in shifts. Pilots, doctors, nurses, policemen. So we are not guaranteeing, nor have we did our application imply that we were going to be a 55 and older only community. So we need that full market potential. Troy is about 5% of the Dayton MSA, metropolitan statistical area. it's not a giant market, but it's got great demographics, and we do well in county seats. So that's why we targeted this property. But we need the full potential of our marketing efforts to be successful here. And we're a great transition between a school and a couple of businesses north and south of us, and possibly some future residential to the east of us. So that was the premise of our application, was that we're a great transition. We're going to attract the right people. We're going to be the highest rent in Troy, usually bar none whenever we come into town. So we have a finance application and a credit check that we run on our residents, just like they're buying a home. Most of these residents could buy homes $250,000 to $500,000 if they wanted to live in a single family residence. These are renters by choice. The demographic supports it. I'm part of that demographic. And I have friends that live in our communities. I have parents and grandparents that live in our communities. But we need the full market potential here, so we're not interested in limiting it to a 55 and older senior community. I don't think Troy's quite right for that yet, but the time will come in the next few decades, I think, as people move out from the Dayton market.
Are there any questions from other committee members? I'm going to do committee
Oh,
members
committee, I'm
first.
sorry, I missed.
I think it's covered most of them. Seems to be a little lack of communication.
Any other council members have questions? Mr. Schilling?
Can I have the microphone, please?
That's right. Yeah.
And first, I'd like to thank Mr. Davis. That was a very good presentation. In doing some study on this apartment complex, as Mr. Thurman said, they have several thousand units that they manage and market. And of the 150 properties that they own, 2 are designated senior living, and the other 148 are marketed to whoever can qualify to live there. As I go back, and I've had several communications from from Greg, essentially the one that stands out is he sent it February 5th, 2020 from Greg Thurman. He went to Mayor Oda, Mr. Kitterington, and myself. And I quote, he says, "We only build single-story, senior-oriented housing." In listening to Mr. Davis's presentation, I counted at least 6 times where he said senior apartments, senior living, senior this, senior that. No mention of young professionals or anybody else, or the ability of the apartment complex to rent to anybody who qualifies. And as I look at this, and by the way, within Ohio, the city of Hudson, Ohio, is one of the 2 cities where they have a senior apartment complex. And the question is, how did that happen? Well, they put a deed restriction on the Redwood property in Hudson, Ohio. The city council did. And so my thought is that, again, the communication that I have received, the impression that our city has received, from Redwood, is that these are senior oriented or senior designed for 55 and older senior living. And so my request to the committee is that we hold them to their word. And I would ask that the committee consider and recommend to council that we put a deed restriction on this property, essentially saying that at least 1 resident per unit must be 55 years or older at the time of the resident's application to Redwood. Again, we need to hold them to what they have been talking about. And so again, that would be my request to this committee.
Before that comes back, are there any other questions or comments? Oh, if you would like to speak, Mr. Thurman.
I appreciate Mr. Schilling's statements, but every piece of literature we have online, every presentation I've made to the city clearly states who do we rent to. It was on the slide last week that said young professionals, people other than 55 and older. Senior oriented is a type of architecture. It's not a type of zoning. It's not a type of restriction that we proposed. So I apologize if that's the implication that came off here, but I have never said that out of my lips since I've been working here with Redwood, is that we're restricted senior housing. I feel ashamed that it's come off that way, but that is not our intent. And we were out there with our website. We're out there with the communities that were in Dayton and Cincinnati, and we're very open and honest about the way we communicate. The senior-oriented design is no parking on the streets, no thresholds from the garage to the house, two-car garage that helps seniors get into their homes instead of a walk-up apartment where they park outside in the football field parking lots. So I stand by senior-oriented design, but I respectfully request that our application be considered for the way we presented it.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, and I was going to say that I do believe we have to consider this in the way that it was presented and approved to us by Planning Commission, because that is what we are acting on. We are also looking at what Planning Commission approved to us and deciding if our recommendation is to recommend to council that they approve that on that ordinance reading or deny it. So I'm not in favor of any amendments at the committee, and I would defer to the other two committee members to see if you have any comments about that.
Have you guys done studies on rent being able to be sustained here in Troy at those levels to be able to maximize occupancy of those?
Yes, sir. As I mentioned, we've been in business for 29 years. We've never sold a property. We've maintained every property as a private development. During this COVID scenario, our properties are over 99% rent collected. That 1% is standard. We have not even dropped a tenth or two of rent collections due to the COVID condition here. That's a testament to our screening of the residents that live in our communities.
And does that rent stay the same no matter what? If
It
you
does
can't fill them, does that change? Do they get adjusted?
I use market rate financing. So the banks that I get my financing from require a certain threshold. In fact, we'll never see $1,200 here. I wish we could, but they'll be closer to $1,400 starting. We don't have any community in our portfolio that's less than 98% leased over 29 years. So that's the best I can do for you without scientific analysis, spreadsheets.
Thank you, Mr. Thurman. I appreciate that. Are there any other comments? I don't believe I have any more from the committee. Anyone in the audience? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. In just 1 minute. Yes, in just 1 minute, please.
For tax purposes, there's no tax benefit to say they're a senior living, senior living restricted or anything like that. For them to say they're senior living, is there a
He's saying senior
design? There's no tax breaks for that. It's just, here's the plan development, and this is the tax rate.
Correct.
The property value gets established based on the value of that plan development as a whole or the individual units.
Yeah, it would be, the property tax would be based upon the individual, or based upon the development as a whole.
I just wanted that clarified, sorry.
Yes, Mayor. Certainly. No, I'm done.
We met with Mr. Thurman last fall when he first came to town to approach this subject. And my understanding has always been that while these are oriented towards seniors, that it is dependent on who can apply and meet the qualifications. There's nothing that's been said that led me to believe that it was going to be marketed to seniors only. The houses are senior friendly. If you're familiar with North Dorset, what is called Wrinkle Village. Sorry to anybody that lives out there. But the houses,
That's my area. That's my
buildings
area.
out there. These are similar in the zero threshold into the house. It's so kind of the same sort of house, only those are purchased, these are rented. I think Story Point actually, if you can meet the qualifications, you can live at Story Point no matter what age you are. So this is kind of the same thing. You don't see young families living at Story Point, but if they meet the qualifications, they certainly can. So just something to keep in mind. I've never been under the impression that this was just strictly senior living.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. There was someone in the audience who had a comment or a question. Can I recognize this?
The lady was
in the
first,
back, and
sorry.
then I will get to you. She had asked to speak. Thank you. If you would just state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Linda Rocco. I'm the lady without a city. I live at 2765 McKeag Road. I'm not annexed to the city. I'm the only person there that isn't. But it's not a question. I just don't think that there's enough attention being paid to the water issue that's there. I have been there since 1982. And in 1998 and 99, when the building and the cul-de-sac started, we kept saying, we're going to flood, we're going to flood. Nobody listened, and we flooded. And of course, we weren't zoned for flooding, so we didn't have any insurance that would cover it. Over $50,000 worth of damage and loss. And then in 2008, when all the buildings started to go on behind us, I started calling and saying, we're going to flood. We're going to flood. Nobody listened. Well, I have FEMA insurance now, but there was still $55,000 worth of damage done to my home. All the floors, all the walls. Once again, everything needed replaced. There's just, it's hard for me to believe that one retention pond is going to take care of all that. I just have a real hard time getting that. And I appreciate all of your statistics, though I could not hear most of them. It's been very difficult to hear back then. I appreciate it, and I know you spent a lot of time on it. But in reality, statistics don't mean a whole heck of a lot until the project is actually in place. And things never go like they're supposed to. And I can already tell you when school's in session, I can barely get out my driveway. The traffic is unbelievable at nighttime. It keeps you awake. And I'm not the only person that complains about that. I think that I don't want it there. I didn't want a school either, but and I didn't live there and make it our homestead, our family homestead all these years for things to change so much. And I didn't even get a vote in it. I didn't even know about it till I got the letter about the first meeting. So at any rate, it doesn't affect. People have to make money, people have to live and have a place to live. I just don't know that that's the right place to do it, is what I want to express. And it's just not personal. Well, actually it is. I'm not looking for it, at this age of my life, I'm not looking for another flood. And it's bad. There's a lot of water. And if you want pictures, give me your email address and I'll send you the pictures.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe there was another gentleman.
Bruce Davidson, I represent 7 to 8 owners of Westlake Village. I won't drag this out. We're against it. We think it's definitely spot zoning. We expect to put 138 units in the middle of
for district.
Thank you very much for your comment. Is there anyone else in the audience who had a comment or a question?
No questions, just a comment. My name is Bruce Muir. I live at 2750 Meadow Point Drive in Troy. I'm with the Stonebridge Homeowners Association. I'm on the board and I'm the president of the association. Speaking for the 149 homeowners, we are very much against this rezoning. Stems around two issues that you've already heard many people come up here and talk about, primarily flooding and the traffic. Great statistics, appreciate it, but I can tell you as someone who lives there, say that no accidents have occurred there is a bunch of malarkey. We got care flight land in the cornfield at the corner of Washington and 718 on numerous occasions. We've carted people away, so please don't tell me there's no accidents happening out there because of traffic. Please don't tell me that the traffic hasn't increased. I've heard these come up here before, and I'll tell you, I've lived there for 17 years, and the traffic continues to increase every year. And common sense says it has to increase. We continue to put homes in Stonebridge Meadows. We're now going to build on Washington Road. How can you say that traffic hasn't increased? I invite any committee member down there when school's back in session. Good luck trying to get out. Okay, you can spend at least 20 minutes trying to make a turn off of Washington onto 718. You'll sit there forever. No flooding issues? Seriously? Cattails continue to grow and expand into that farmer's field. Come down there when it's wet, you'll see water flowing over that intersection of Washington and 718. It's a river over the top of that intersection. So please don't tell me that flooding's not an issue. And you can quote all you want that retention ponds are such that we won't increase or subdivisions won't increase runoff. Seriously? Take a look at Stonebridge Meadows. Where's that retention pond exit? You can watch it come out like a river, right into the farmer's field, across the road, and into that whole area. I would ask the committee to please consider before we start expanding, and we're not against expansion. It's not what it's about. Fix the problem beforehand. Be prepared before you put the homes in for flooding, for traffic. Do what we need to do to control the flooding. Do what we need to do to control the traffic. And I don't know, I'm not a traffic expert. I don't know if that's put a light in, widen the road. I don't know. But do it before we put the homes in there so we don't end up living again with the results. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Davis or city staff, can you address any other traffic things that might be in the works for McKay?
Yeah, so a couple of points. The counts that were taken were 17 and 18, so it has been a couple of years. That's one. Two, those weren't numbers that we created. We put little traffic counters down on the street. So the city engineering department, we go put the traffic counters, we bring the software back in. I mean, so it is what it is. When we talk about 718 and Washington, we have looked at that intersection. A signal is needed there. The reason we have not proceeded forward is because the schools are in limbo. So traffic's going to change drastically at that intersection if there's a school there or not. So we've been waiting. In 2016, I believe I did the intersection, kind of looked at that. It wasn't overly required. The signal wasn't like, oh, it's needed every hour of every day. It's during peak times. Ms. Sneed, you're a teacher. You understand around school. It's peak times. It's 15 minutes. I'm not saying we would not design any street to handle the max peak times of the 30 minutes a day. Okay, so and then when we talk about flooding, so we talk about Stonebridge Meadows. The discharge does go to the side ditch. I was not with the city at that point, but it's my understanding from the previous city engineer that we worked with the developer and we had the developer, I'm not trying to push the ball down the road at all, but we had the developer committed to providing an outlet to Ziegenfelder ditch And they were going to run it along 718. And at that point, my understanding is that township trustees voted it down and did not want that pipe. I don't know what other options were at that time. And we actually were working, I don't know if the farmers here, the person who farms that property right down of Stonebridge Meadows came to us a couple years ago and was trying to get the property owners to work on a subsurface ditch to fix the pipe because the pipe's broken down, and we could never come to any solution. So we are all the time looking at solutions, trying to figure out the discharge to Stonebridge Meadows. It's not an easy answer. When we talk about flooding at 718 and Washington Road, the times that I've seen it go over, it does go over, it goes down pretty quick. The times that I've seen it go over is when we're talking about a drastic, excessive rain. I'm not saying that that area doesn't lay flat, but I am saying that controlled stormwater situations such as what Redwood is proposing in this 22 and a half acre subdivision will improve the stormwater situation out there. It's not necessarily going to fix all of it, but there's a lot of other properties out there that, you know, that there's no stormwater structures at all. So, so we continue to work on that situation.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
My name is Ron Poling, and I live at Westlake Village. I'm learning a lot these last couple of weeks, so it's been kind of good for me. But I have talked to the engineer department at the city, and I've talked to Mr. Thurman, and I appreciate that. And it is appealing what they have proposed, but there's a concern on McKay Road. And it's something I think the council needs to work on to get that taken care of. Now, my talking to the engineering department today, there's annexing things going on, which I didn't know about. Maybe you can address to the audience why there's such a discrepancy, because they say, why don't you fix this? Well, it's not annexed, this is annexed. But if you're going to annex for this proposed apartments and you're going to annex for the school, we need to get that annexed so we can, McKay needs some work, and there's a lot of traffic. And because of the development across from Concord School and the one that's going to go on Washington Road, if they want to come into Troy Christian School or they want to come to Round Circle, the circle, and come in to a ball game or downtown, they're going to come down McKay. And right now, COVID, the traffic's less, of course. But since they put those apartments, those houses out there at the corner by, you know, Washington Road across from Concord, it has affected the traffic on McKay. So I guess what I'm saying is that to me, it would be something the council should work on. Let's get McKay fixed. Because, you know, if you've ever driven on it, there's somebody riding a bike or somebody's running along the side, it is a concern about the traffic. And I live on the side of Westlake that I come out on McKay, and I can let you know that it gets pretty hairy more than just a couple times a day, but mostly in mornings and afternoons, but other times too. And it's going to, the thing about it is, I think what we're saying, it's going to get worse. We need to take care of this. And it's appealing, but I think there's work needs to be done. So I'm not in favor of putting more things out there until we correct the problems that have been discussed tonight.
Thank you for your comments. Just want to clarify one thing. This may be what you're going to say, Mayor Oda, but the annexations that the city does come at the property owner's request, not at the city's request. So I think we saw the slide that McKay goes through the city and the county and the city and the county. That's the way the line exists until someone requests to be annexed into the city, as this property has. So
I guess my comment is we got to be careful how much stuff we're putting on McKay. We got all that zigzag and whatever else.
that's why I believe that we were saying that we wanted to work as those came into the city to correct McKay.
So there are instances where we do work with property owners and we do talk to them about potentially annexing. There happens to be a couple large farmers, and I'm originally from a farm, so we know, we've talked to them, it hasn't been recently, but we know they're feeling on annexation. I did also mention earlier in the discussion tonight about McKay Grid and improvements, and we at the engineering department approached the county engineering department. It's probably been 5-ish years ago to say, hey, can we work together and can we improve this street? And at that point, they kind of deferred. So what does that matter? Like, that matters because they're out in the county. So is the city going to fund all of the county improvements? Because it's not actually our street to maintain or improve or anything like that. It's in the county's right of way versus the city's right of way. I understand what you're saying. I know that traffic is increasing on McKay. We're waiting for it to annex. And we're all the time watching it so that we can improve it when the time comes and when we have that availability. Once we, annex property, unfortunately, traffic is just something that it's kind of like, once it's going to get there, that's when you can solve the problem. Especially at the edges of your city, you can't really solve the problem when it's in and out of the city until it gets in the city. From my standpoint, right? Because I'm a city engineer, not the county engineer. So just an FYI.
Thank you.
Jill?
Yeah.
Can you tell everybody how many times it goes in and out of the city along McKay?
It depends. I think when we did the 2016 speed study where the traffic the speed limit got brought to a consistent 45 miles per hour. I think depending on which side, I think it was a total of 9 or 10 times. So it was in and out, in and out. And so that was one of the reasons why we did the speed study with the county, in conjunction with the county, and getting ODOT's approval because the cops and the sheriff's department, nobody would touch it because by the time meaning that by the time you get to stop a vehicle, they'd probably not be in your jurisdiction anymore and things like that. So that's why we kind of did that speed study in 2016.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Rebecca Spencer. I'm one of the residents on the Cartwright Court. My address is 843 Cartwright Court. I had the same issues or the same concerns that the other residents do, the flooding. I've been there 20 years. We built our house knowing that it was not going to stay a country environment, but accepting the proposed plans that we had seen before. Your job today is to decide whether or not to make recommendations to City Council as far as the rezoning. Is that correct?
We are recommending to City Council whether or not to approve what has been recommended by Planning Commission.
And I understand the in and outs of the McKay Road and everything. I think you have enough interested parties between the subdivision behind my home, Mrs. Rocco, as she has said, the people that are on my court and all up and down McKay. We know that the school has purchased the property that is adjacent to this property. We know that some large development is coming, and I think all we're asking for is transparency, first of all, from all of the organizations, the county, the city, and everybody else as far as communication, but also to get some cooperation because we all understand that there are ongoing issues out there. There are traffic that's increasing and is going to get worse. There is drainage that is not being addressed. And we understand that there are reasons why that's happening. But for everybody, all of the organizations involved to say, this is not our issue, we can't address this at the time, and for us not to continue to talk between the county and the city. If the farmers don't want to be annexed, they don't have to be. But there should be cooperation between the county and the city elected officials then in order to still plan for that area. Just simply saying this is the city and this is the county and we can't solve the problem is frustrating to those of us that have to live with the problem. So perhaps if that could be improved in the overall, that would be the best for everybody, for the city and the city officials, for the county officials, for those that don't want to be annexed, and then for the progress of a subdivision anywhere, Washington or this particular. I think communication needs to be better.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm sure the city staff would like improved communication as well. Again, yes, sir.
My name is Ed Ham, and I live in Cartwright Court. And I don't think I can say anything any better than what my neighbor did. But I will say that I believe the survey is only good the day you take it. After that, it's gone. And the other thing is, if the drainage has been fixed, why on these rainy days, if I have kids in my backyard trying to fish? Seriously. They're out there with a pole, sitting on my bank, trying to catch fish. There are a few in there, but they're dead by the time we get out. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who has a question? Yes, ma'am.
Just want to be clear. The flooding still continues. It's just that I lost it all that in those years that I spoke about. But I've lived there since 1982, and it's gotten worse every year. And the city, the township, and the county, they still argue. They argued back then, they argue now. It's not going to change, I guess. You have to work together. But I do know that something's got to be done. When you put all that over there, I mean, that ditch, that's where it goes right now. It goes to that property. Whether it's right or wrong, that's where it goes. So it's going to just stay there, and it's just going to get deeper and deeper and deeper. And when it overflows, it comes into my place. So just letting you know. I want to make sure everybody understood that it's still going on. Thank you.
I think I see anyone, or maybe come on.
My name's Larry Morrow. I am the farmer that farms the swamp right east of Stonebridge or whatever it's called. I farmed it down, and I live on Washington Concord Road, which is northwest of Troy. We farm from Fletcher to Pickwood to Troy. The land that we farm down on 718 and Peebles is the wettest of all the ground that we farm, of over 1,200 acres. We always get in there last because it's so wet. The engineer's comment about the problem, yes, the problem was there before Stonebridge. There's a tile broke down close to the A-frame house. There's other issues with it. But I guess my question is, well, Mr. Davis, you had a page up there about the drainage. Did you look at that again at all? Or you made some comments about, we don't do this because, it's against the law or whatever. When did the law change on being able to dump water right in the neighboring farm field? When did that law change?
I mean, the law changed, it's just not allowed.
Not allowed, you say?
That's correct.
But it was a number of years ago when it happened, that it was allowed then?
I can't speak for before I'm born, but I can tell you that basically that you're not allowed to have a post-development higher number than pre-development.
See, the issue was a certain developer, I won't name the name, threatened to put a hog complex on there because she couldn't get the place in. And the city council approved it late one night towards Christmas time. I don't even know what year it was. They approved it knowing, or somebody just shared that the developer tried to get water to go clear down, and the township trustees stopped it, which was the case of where two trustees that never agreed on anything agreed on that night. And so anyhow, the situation was, why then did they approve it when it didn't meet your guidelines you're talking about?
I'm not.
My next question is.
Okay, go ahead.
My next question then is, where is the water going to go from this new apartment pond Where is it gonna go and how?
Gonna get across 718
How?
with a culvert. It's gonna get across it. There's a crossing right there, just on the south side. We've already been in discussion with Mr. Thurman about how the property, it needs to get across 718 and it needs to get to that big builder ditch.
Now, are you aware that Ziggin Builder Ditch is possibly gonna be closed up here for too long, maybe?
No, we're not.
The new buyer that bought some of it talks about closing part of that ditch.
But you can't close it.
Well,
You're not supposed to redirect water from where it's originally going. And that's the law that has never changed. So if we do see a situation, you're not, that's not even a city of Troy law or standard. That's way higher than that.
And then a little more on the subject,
I think we want to go back to the Redwood development. I mean, what you're talking about has.
I understand, but I farm right east of what's the Redwood's gonna be. You know, is it gonna be as in a famous baseball player's words, deja vu all over again for me in that field?
You farm east of Stonebridge Meadows. Do you
I farm
farm
east of
Redwood?
this Redwood.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? All right, just, oh, I'm sorry.
Deborah Steester, 2081 South Greenlee Road. I guess my issue is with the process. You say that you're making a decision based on a project that the Planning Commission has approved. Well, they're forwarding a project that the city says we should do. The city's worked with the developer to come up with this plan. It goes to Planning Commission, and Planning Commission, they say, well, okay, we won't do a public hearing because City Council will do a public hearing. So it gets to City Council, and at this time, you're saying, well, the city has approved it, the Planning Commission approves it, so gee, we might as well, it must be what's needed. I think it would be helpful if citizens were involved in the process before it gets to you. I think, Ms. Sneed, you were on the Planning Commission, and every time it's like, well, City Council is going to do the public hearing, so we won't do one. But by the time it gets to you, everybody's already said, this is good, and lots of people have told you that it's not good.
Well, if I can just clarify maybe a little, there are requirements for what city staff is expected to provide to the Planning Commission as far as any development that gets done in Troy, and they have to address, and that's what Mr. Davis was saying he gave to us. We've seen it from the Planning Commission report on June 24th. It's all the standards that are in the zoning code, in the subdivision and regulations, and they have to be addressed, and they're addressed by city staff. And then that goes to Planning Commission. And I mean, I know I've been on Planning Commission. They may hold a public hearing. They usually say they're going to let City Council, because a public hearing is required on any rezoning.
But by the time it gets to City Council, you're already saying Planning Commission, is recommending this.
But you may like to know that we see Planning Commission's reports before they do. We are reading the same information they are reading.
Did you see the Board of Park Commissioners report on this project?
Yeah, all they wanted was a walking path around the detention pond.
But there was one no out of there were 3 on the park board.
Yes?
Yeah, there was, okay, and what was his problem with it?
I don't know, he didn't state it.
Yeah, he thought it was too dense. Mr. Kappers voted no on this
That was at
project.
Planning Commission.
No, that was at the board.
Yeah, also at Planning Commission, I guess.
He voted no at Planning Commission, and that's why I wish some of those people would be here to kind of support.
And they have every right to be.
To support what the citizens are saying. I mean, I think
And we appreciate you hearing your comments. I just want to clarify that we see multiple points addressed in the reports that we get, both that go to Planning Commission and then come to City Council.
But Mr. Cappers, who is on planning commission, but he's also, board of park commissioners, he was opposed to the development because his comment was it's too dense. So, there is one person, in the progression of things that has been opposed.
Yes.
For that reason.
Yes.
Let's see. I had one other point. That's okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I wanted to clarify if I could,
Yes,
everybody,
that's great.
planning commission meetings are open to the public. They meet the second, fourth Wednesday of each month, so anybody can attend the meetings.
Do they take public comments most of the time?
Public comments are up to the planning commission chair,
You can,
which is good to Mr. Capper. And
I was just saying, are you going to address the density related to this?
yeah, I was going to say, well, Mr. Cappers did vote against it, and both planning commission and the park board. I think with the park board, he talked about having park plan because their requirement wasn't on how dense the development was. The park board, they're addressing the concerns, doesn't meet park land requirements. In this case, it did not, which is why they are providing fees in lieu of, which is another big point that goes to the Parks and Capital Recreation budget. And then they also added the walking trail at the request of the planning commission, or at the request of the park board. So they have addressed both of those.
Okay, and they're not the only development to do fees in lieu of park lands. I mean, that's fairly common.
Correct. And this is just step one in a three-step process.
Right.
I just wanted to point that out to everybody in the audience.
Yes, this is the general plan, and then we move forward to the final development plan, which goes back to the planning commission. And then there is a third step of the record plan, which goes to planning commission and then again to city council.
Correct.
The 5-acre green space, does that include the pond?
5-acre green space.
Because there's not much grass around the driveway.
Oh, sorry, I was going to show you the picture I had. Yeah, the 5.2 acres of green space does not, everything around it, all the green space is the 5.2 of pond.
But it's pretty misleading because the 5 acres of green space is pretty much like curb lawn.
Yeah, it's any landscape green space, correct.
Any other comments or questions? Yes.
I'm Doug Lang. I'm in Stonebridge subdivision. I've been there 8 years.
Can you state your address for the record?
603 Rosecrest Drive. And I hear all this about the traffic. The traffic has increased in the 8 years that I've lived in Troy. What's going to happen in the time period that it's being built? All the construction trucks, traffic, and workers. We have to put up with all that. When are you going to start paying attention to the current homeowners that have lived there for a long time? You get in the cart before the horse. You're not planning for the traffic on the road until whenever. So we have to put up with this. We have to try and get out from McKay onto 718 on a very sharp turn. I think you need to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so committee, I need to know what our recommendation is to council when they consider this on Monday night. A consensus? And
Do anything other than
I don't know if you want me to pass you the microphone, but we were saying that, well, I'll let you go.
Grant, do we have any other alternatives other than
Well,
it meets everything? Do we move forward or?
you can look at the factors and make a determination of whether or not you agree with the staff report and the planning commission that that meets those factors. That's your role there.
From what we've been given, it does. What I've read.
Okay, so Mr. Roselle, Mr. Twist, are we in favor of moving forward to council with a positive recommendation for step one of this three-step process?
I would say we have to move forward due to it meeting the standards that are required, and then the council as a whole can discuss. I would like to see us talk to the county again. I think the traffic is an issue there, and I think we can't just, I think traffic is an issue there, and I think we need to talk to the county again. We can't, as they said, just keep pushing it off, pointing the finger at everybody else. I think we need to come up with a solution, what that long-term solution. We might not be able to do it all right now, but I think we have to have a plan that we're working together to make sure that traffic gets improved on McKay. That's what I would like to see. And I would like to know that these meetings are happening and we're moving forward to have a long-term plan for McKay. If you're going to put a school out there, all of those things to help in that development. You can't keep pointing the finger at everybody else.
So, Mr. Roselle, in favor as we have this report in front of us, Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Then it is unanimous that we move forward with a positive recommendation to City Council on this ordinance on Monday night. The Community and Economic Development Committee has one other item on providing a recommendation to council regarding the annexation petition filed for 83.356 acres from Staunton Township located off Troy-Urbana Road. And we are considering the three items that go along with this as emergency legislation. Mr. David?
Yes, thank you. I'm trying to pull it up here on my throat. So this is a recommendation to council regarding the annexation petition. It was 83 acres off of Troy-Urbana Road. Essentially what this is following the standard for all annexations as they come in. We are asked for a statement of municipal services to be provided, a statement of buffering related to the compatible uses and acceptance. I will let you know that it meets all the requirements. We do have the facilities in place to take on the 83 acres of land, and we would recommend making a possible recommendation to council as a whole for this first step in the annexation process.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee members? Any questions from other council members?
I did want to point out that we are considering emergency legislation for this.
Right, we need to have the time frame required by state law.
Thank you. Any comments on this item?
And that, just to clarify, that's based on what they applied for was for that time.
Yes, submitted by the owner applicant.
Yeah.
By the owner. All right, so then committee members, what is your pleasure?
Yeah, move it to council.
So it's unanimous to move forward with emergency to council on that item.
There'll be three pieces of legislation.
Yes. Are there any other items to come before Community and Economic Development?
No, there are not.
If not, we are adjourned. That goes.
Good evening. This is a meeting of the Finance Committee. On my left is Bobby Phillips, committee member. It is 7:29 on August the 10th, and we are here to discuss an authorization for subordination agreement with Greenville National Bank. Mr. Davis?
I warned you before this meeting started, you'd be tired of me, so I'm pretty sure that statement is true at this point. This is a request to sign a subordination agreement to remain in the second lien position with Greenville National Bank for a loan provided to 8 South Market Street, the project known as Lockbox 290. In July of 2019, a loan of $250,000 to Four Sons Development LLC, and I believe Mr. Westfall, he made it. He is still staying in the room for the property. Has been here essentially through the last 12 months, renovations, heating and cooling, other additional project costs. He went back to the bank, got a larger loan, and because of that loan, we are in the same position. We are still in second position. It is requested that we re-sign the subordination agreement. The building appraisal is $1.5 million, so we have plenty of collateral to remain that second place. So that is why we are requesting approval from this committee, and we do request emergency legislation so that the private sector loan can be closed without delay.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips, you have any questions? No, I do not. I do not either. Anybody on council have any questions or comments? Anybody in the audience? You could move forward with the emergency legislation. There you are. Let's move forward.
All right, thank you.
Anything else come before finance?
No,
We are adjourned.
thank you.
You mean everybody for the whole night?
Mhm.
Yep.